Alrighty, so problem number 14 deals with order of operations. So if you don't remember, PEMDAS, we went over this the other day. Order of operations, you do parentheses first, exponents, then multiplication and division interchangeably from left to right, and then addition, subtraction, again, interchangeably from left to right. So according to the order of operations, for the first of the expressions in 14, we are going to do what's inside the parentheses first. So -1 minus 6 is going to be a -7 because I have a -1 minus 6. Here I can add a line and change the sign because it was a subtraction problem. And even though the 6 was not negative to begin with, you still do change the sign. It just changes it from positive to negative. So now I have a -1 plus a -6, which they have the same sign now. So I add the numbers and I keep the sign. So that's why I added the numbers. 6 plus 1 is 7. Kept the sign of negative. All right. So we have a -7 for what was inside the parentheses. And then I still have everything else. So when you are doing problems with the order of operations, I would highly recommend writing it out step by step so that you don't lose things. I write it out step by step, and I've been doing math for years. So it's not that you can't do it. It just is a organizational thing that is really helpful. So now that I have done that, I am going to deal with the exponents because that is the next thing that I'm working on. 2 to the third power means 2 times 2 times 2. It is not 2 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 cubed, or 2 to the third power, is 8. And then you still have what you had before. So now, if you remember from our bell work the other day, we can actually transform this by using the add a line and change the sign method, because you can look at that sign as a subtraction problem initially. So you can change that. I meant to have it be black. Okay. You can change that to a plus, or a plus +7 plus 8. And now those have the same exact sign, and you can just do the addition like you normally would. So the answer for this first expression is going to be a +15. The second expression for problem number 14 is 10 plus 9 times -6 minus a -1 plus 8. So again, we are going to start with our parentheses first. So this set of parentheses has something for me to do. This one does not. This one is more of just a placeholder set of parentheses, so you can clearly see this negative sign. But I do have something to do in the right set of parentheses. So -1 plus 8, I am adding two numbers with different signs. So I'm going to subtract them. So 8 minus 1 is 7. And then I keep the sign of the larger number, which in this case is my 8. So it is going to stay a +7. I am going to keep it in the parentheses just because we have this negative sign, or this subtraction sign, on the outside. And I want to be consistent in my notation with you all. So again, I am writing it out step by step so that I don't lose things. It's a very, very useful technique. Okay, so next you are going to do the multiplication right here because there are no exponents. So you're going to do 9 times a -6, so you do your multiplication like normal, and then you actually add the sign back in. You have a positive times a negative, which means you're multiplying numbers with different signs, and that is why your answer for that is going to be negative. Okay, so now we have a series of addition and subtraction, okay? So we are going to do this first because it is what comes up first when I am moving from left to right. So if I have a 10 plus a negative 54, I'm adding numbers with different signs. So I am going to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number, larger sign. So 54 minus 10 is going to be 44. And then I'm going to keep the sign of the larger number, which in this case is going to be that 54. We have that negative 44, and now I'm minus the 7. Now, you can do one of two things with this. If you can just do this subtraction in your head accurately, awesome, go for it. If you cannot, we are still going to add a line and change the sign because that is a subtraction. So we are going to add a line and then change the sign. So this is now a negative 44 plus a negative 7. So when I am doing this, I'm now adding numbers with the same sign. So I'm going to simply add the numbers. So 44 plus 7 is going to be 11, then 11 and 12, so it's 121. And then you are going to keep the sign of oh my gosh, wait. This is not multiplication. This is addition. Let's start that part over, can we? So we have a what? 44 plus 7. Yes, that is going to be 11. It's going to be 11 and so and then 4 plus 1 is 5. Wow. This is why we do not do math in the middle of the night, people. All right. So now that we have added the numbers together, we keep the sign that the numbers originally had, which in this case is going to be negative. So my final answer for the second expression in problem 14 is going to be a negative 51. Alrighty, so final expression for problem 14 is a long one. So we are going to first do what's in the parentheses, and we go in order from left to right, still following the order of operations. So if this multiplication sign was instead an addition sign, I would actually do this division first because it has to follow the order of operations that says division comes before addition. Okay? So, but it's not. So we are actually going to do the multiplication first, followed by the division. So we have a negative 6 times 4. You do the multiplication like you normally would. 6 times 4 is 24. And then you look for what the sign should be. So it is a negative times a positive, which means we are multiplying numbers with different signs. So that means that's a negative. And then we still have this divide by negative 2. So I keep going since there is still an operation inside the parentheses technically. So if we took this a level further and completed it, we have a negative 24 divided by a negative 2. I do my division like I normally would, which is 24 divided by 2. It goes in 1 and then twice, because that is 4. So this would be a 12, and then you have to look at the signs. If you are dividing numbers with the same sign, you are going to be keeping it positive. So that is actually going to be a positive 12. And then I still have the rest of my lovely expression to deal with. So now that I have done what is inside the parentheses, I am going to deal with this exponent. So 3 squared is going to be 3 times 3, not 3 times 2. 3 times 3 is 9. So I gotta erase that so I can still have room to write. So this is 9. And then we still have the rest. Again, I am marking it out step by step. Might seem slow, but it is effective at keeping track of things. So the next thing we are going to do is actually this piece, because there is what's called the implied multiplication right there. That means there's not technically a multiplication sign written there, but you need to treat it like it's there. So this is 2 times 12, which is going to be 24. And then you have minus 13, you're adding 9, you have that. Okay, so now we go in order from left to right with our subtraction and addition. So 1 minus 9 is going to be negative 8. Then we have plus 24 minus 13. All right, and then let's see, with this, you have a negative 8 plus a 24, which will give you a 16 minus 13. So I've moved up here. And then 16 minus 13 is going to be 3. So 3 is your final answer for the third expression in 14. So just to recap, 14, the first expression equaled 15. The second expression equaled negative 51 after various trial and error with my addition skills, apparently. And the last expression is going to be equal to 3.